And welcome back to Reactioncast. It's your host Jesus, aka Tyrant Dominus, and today we're diving into one of the boldest swings from DreamWorks yet, the 2025 live-action How to Train Your Dragon.
These beasts are a threat to all of our lands. It's time, Hiccup.
I have to kill you. I will, because I'm a Viking. Hear that? I'm a Viking! It's okay. I won't hurt you.
That's right, a full-scale adaptation of the beloved 2010 animated film with director Dean oh my god, how do you pronounce it? DeBlois? I think that's how you say it. Returning to the helm, the ship he originally launched. And let me tell you, this remake doesn't just coast on nostalgia, it's here to prove the lightning can strike twice if you respect the storm. This isn't just another studio cash grab or a soulless frame-by-frame remake. Dean DeBlois came back because he knows these characters, this world, and most importantly, where the heart of the story lies. In an interview with Business Insider, he explained that Universal asked him to bring to it every embellishment you can, deepen the mythology, deepen the characters, and make it feel a little bit more mature, lean into the action. But he only agreed to direct it again because, as he put it, I know where the heart is, and I know these characters, I know this world. That clarity of vision radiates throughout this adaptation, whether you're a longtime fan of Hiccup and Toothless or flying into the world for the first time. There's a lot to love, and yes, a few flight wobbles along the way. So let's break it all down. So, if you don't know, this film is set in the rugged, dragon-riddled village of Berk. How to Train Your Dragon follows Hiccup, a scrawny, brainy teen who doesn't quite fit with the rough and tumble Viking peers, or his hulking, dragon-slaying father. Berk has a very clear rule book. Dragons are the enemies, but when Hiccup takes down a mysterious Night Fury, one of the rarest, most feared dragons out there, he finds he can't bring himself to kill it. Instead, he helps heal it. And that choice changes everything. From that moment on, the story evolves into the tale of unlikely friendship, rebellion against tradition, and the reshaping of an entire culture. Hiccup's secret bonds with the dragon he names Toothless starts off shaky and quiet, but it quickly blooms into something powerful. He doesn't just learn about dragons, he learns empathy, strategy, leadership, and ultimately how to be his own kind of Viking. What's different in the live-action version? Not much in terms of plot, but that's intentional. The story arc sticks close to the original blueprint, only now it derps into hyper-realistic visuals, grounded performances, and about, I think it was like 30 extra minutes of runtime. We get a few more scenes exploring the team dynamics with the dragon training group. Think high school cafeteria politics with axes and fire-breathing beasts. There's more tension between Astrid and Hiccup early on, and some added beats that give Berk's social hierarchy more dimension. The good news, these additions don't disturb the emotional rhythm. If anything, they deepen the sense of isolation and eventual triumph that defines Hiccup's arc. The movie retains its sense of awe, wonder, and heart. Even if you know how it ends, the journey still feels fresh, especially when Toothless takes flight. So let's start with the casting, because this remake lives or dies on whether or not these actors can actually carry the emotional torch lit by the original. And for the most part, they bring the fire. First, let's spotlight Mason Thames, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, as Hiccup. Honestly, this is one of the best lead performances in a live-action remake we've seen in a while. Thames doesn't try to imitate Jay Burchell's, I believe that's how you pronounce that, animated voice. Instead, he captures Hiccup's spirit, his awkwardness, resilience, and emotional vulnerability. You can see him thinking through every problem, fumbling through every social mishap, and quietly becoming the leader Burke never expected. He's heartfelt, authentic, and magnetic. And then there's Gerard Butler. Gerard Butler, my apologies, stepping out of the voice booth and into the armor of Stoic the Vast. He was always the obvious pick. His animated Stoic was practically modeled after him, but in the live action, he brings added depth to his role. There's a gruff tenderness to his performance that hits harder when you can see it on his face. His chemistry with Thames, adds emotional weight to their rocky father-son relationship. Now, here's where things get a little murky. Nico Parker as Astrid. The initial read on her character is rough, not because of performance, but because of believability. She doesn't immediately sell the hardened dragon-slaying warrior vibe. Some viewers just couldn't buy into her badass persona. Took me a bit, especially given how polished and privileged she seemed. But credit where credit is due. She grows into the role. By the second act, she delivers emotional layered moments, and her chemistry with Hiccup gradually finds its footing. It's not a total win, but it's a respectable arc. And as for the supporting cast, there's a mixed bag. The dragon training teens, fish like Snotnut, Roughnut, and Toughnut, feel lifted straight from a cartoon. Their exaggerated quirks and comedic beats work great in animation, but in live action, they sometimes veer into the cringy territory. But that said, they're fun. They serve their roles. Younger viewers will likely enjoy their presence more than adults will. But let's give props where it's due. Nick Frost as Gobber the Blutch is a total scene stealer. He walks the fine line between comic relief and narrative glue. His timing is sharp. He delivers warm and chaotic in all the right ways. Gobber has always been a fan favorite, and Frost keeps that streak alive. Overall, the cast does a solid job translating the animated archetypes into flesh and blood characters. Some transitions are smoother than others, but the emotional core, especially between Hiccup, Stoic, and Toothless, lands exactly where it needs to. Now, when it comes to the story, so How to Train Your Dragon plays it safe, but that's a good thing. This remake isn't trying to outdo the original, it's trying to honor it. While the reverence could have felt lazy in the wrong hands, director Dean manages to walk the tightrope between familiarity and refinement. At its heart, the plot is still a coming-of-age tale about empathy in the face of tradition. Hiccup is a misfit trying to find his place in the culture built of violence and fear. And the big twist, he realizes people have it all wrong. Dragons aren't the monsters, they're misunderstood. The revelation leads him to challenge everything his society stands for. The core narrative is preserved with near religious precision, but the live-action format introduces some changes, not in plot beats, but in how those beats play. One major difference is pacing. The film runs about, I think I said, let me double check here. It runs 30 minutes longer than the original. While it doesn't feel bloated, the accurate length does shift the rhythm. Some scenes that were shift and punchy in the animation now simmer and stretch. It's not always a bad thing. Some characters won't benefit from the breathing room, but it slightly reduce the film's momentum, especially early on. A new layer in this version is the emphasis on social dynamics among the Viking teens. There's more pronounced high school level clique energy, with Astrid and her squad clearly atop the food chain and Hiccup lingering in exile. It's a visual shortcut of effectively conveying he's an outsider status, but the payoff is mixed. The chasm between them is widened, yet the resolution isn't always convincing. Practically their sudden romantic connection, which feels underdeveloped. But let's talk strengths. The emotional stakes are just as potent here, if not more. Hiccup's inner conflict, his guilt, his compassion, his desire to bridge two worlds feel authentic. His evolving bond with Toothless remains the emotional anchor of the story. There's quite scenes together among the film's best. The learning to trust montage, still magic. Then there's the climax. Without spoiling it, it's bigger, louder, and visually jaw-dropping. The introduction of the Alpha Dragon Queen rises the stakes of the near kaiju levels. Watching the teens rally, the dragons unite, and the village ideology shift in real time, it still hits. Maybe even harder, now that it's grounded in more it's more tensile world. It's more in your face here. If there isn't a constant narrative hiccup, pun intended, it's a believability factor. In animation, kids taking down dragons works. In live action, it requires a little bit more suspension of disbelief. Some of the action sequences teeter on impulsive. One montage in particular has teens bonding with dragons, and it feels like 90 seconds flat. In the blink and now your bestie moment that doesn't quite sell the same emotional depth as Hiccup and Tooth's gradual trust building arc. Still, these are minor bumps in the overall's, solid flight path. The story still resonates. The character arc still matters. The emotional plot is just as sweet. If not a reinvention, it's respectful, polished retelling of that knows exactly where the heart beats. So, we now, saying all that, where How to Train Your Dragon excels in story and performance, it absolutely soars when it comes to some of the other elements that make this film an enjoyable watch. This is where the adaptation leads into the cinematic spectacle, and it mostly nails it. Let's start with the MVP behind the scenes, John Powell. Oh my god, names this film, it's gonna get me. The original trilogy composer returns, and honestly, it's hard to overstate what a difference that makes. His score is emotionally loaded, rousing, adventurous, and instantly recognizable. When those familiar motifs swell toward Toothless' first flight or a high-stake dragon battle, it hits you right in nostalgia, and then kicks up with a richer orchestrated and more modern mixing. It's a prime example of legacy done right. Visually, the film is a stunner. The CGI is more realistic than stylized, opting for texture and depth over exaggerated expressions. That means dragons look and move like real creatures, majestic, scary, and beautiful. But it comes at a price. This is where, while Toothless still charms, he's less emotionally readable. His animations at a tilt of a head or a blink of an eye told you everything. Here, some of that nuance is lost. It's not a deal breaker, but it slightly dulls his character. On the flip side, though, what's the film lost in facial expression, it gains in sheer scope. The dragon flight sequence, next level. Multiple critics have seen this version may have the best dragon riding scenes ever put to film, and honestly, it's hard to argue. The combination of camera work, choreography, and the score creates sequences that is thrilling, cinematic, emotionally rich. House of Dragons may have the political drama, but this movie owns the sky. The production design also deserves praise. Brick look and feels like a real Viking settlement, gritty, windswept, and harsh. The costumes are rugged, the weapons are practical, and the dragons integrated well into the environment. It's a world that feels lived in, not just rendered. But let's be real, not everything lands perfectly. The humor, for one, doesn't always translate. Lines are felt snappy and improvised in animation, sometimes fall flat in live action. There are notable stiffness in a few comedic breaks, especially when the side characters, who we talked about earlier, feel trapped between cartoon energy and real-world performance. Still, these are nitpicks in the production that overall nails the fantasy tone. Credit where credit is due, the film doesn't cave to modern remake cliches. There is no forced social commentary, no awkward attempts to update the narrative. It simply trusts its story, and trust pays off in the film that looks, sounds, and feels like a true cinematic event. So, at the end of the day, when the dust settles and the dragons land, How to Train Your Dragon stands as a rare beast, a live-action remake that actually respects its source material, manages to enhance it in a meaningful way, you know? Director Dean DeBlois, oh god, I do apologize, didn't return to reinvent his original vision. He came back to refine it, to paint it with more tools, more scope, and deeper textures. And while the remake doesn't surpass the animated classic, a near impossible feat, you know, it flies closer to that bar than most remakes ever dare. Mason Thames is a revelation as Hiccup. Gerard Butler returns as stoic like he's never left. Nico Parker, despite the rocky start, earns her place as Astrid. The supporting cast mostly holds their own, even if they're a cartoon root show. John Paul scores still elite. The CGI, gorgeous, even if Toothless feels a little less expressive. And the dragon flights, better than most fantasy epics that spend 3 times that budget. Yes, there are hiccups. The pacing drags a bit with the longer runtimes. Some humor feels off. A few emotional beats, especially the faster character shifts, don't land quite as gracefully in live action. But let's be real, this is a win. A big one, especially in an era where most animated live action adaptations, Disney, either miss the point or actively fumble the legacy. This film, this film knows what it's doing, and it knows what you want, and it delivers. If you got kids, take them. If you're a grown-up fan revisiting a favorite, you'll probably tear up. And if it's your first time, you're in for a heartfelt fantasy about dragons, dads, and daring to be different. So that wraps up our journey back to Berk. How to Train Your Dragon didn't just play it safe, it played it smart, with a grounded story, committed performance, and some of the most exhilarating dragon flights ever put to screen. This remake proves that it still has room to revisit beloved stories when it's done with care, craft, and genuine heart. If this is your first time flying with Hiccup and Toothless, you picked a solid launching point. And if you're a longtime fan like myself, this is a warm, familiar, and unexpected thrilling return to the world we never really wanted to leave. Now, let me know what your thoughts on the film. Did it live up to your expectations? How does it compare to the original for you? And more importantly, do you think DreamWorks should even try adapting more of their classics after this one? You know, they have some in there. But if you've enjoyed this review and my thoughts, don't forget to like and subscribe or share it with your fellow Dragon Riders. I've got more deep dives and reactions and reviews lined up, so stay tuned. And thanks again for listening or watching. Until next time, see ya, see ya, see ya, see ya.